you could see all the internals of that BMW.
And what a way to enter today's race. Here in the RENNSPORT Founders League, we are back at the Nordschleife for the action-packed GT4 race, which last time was pretty much a blast, won by Maximilian Dehn, of course, but he's not here today, so we will have a new victor in the GT4 class at this race. And yeah, as you could already hear, I'm not alone, because I'm joined by Tim Island once more.
Hello. Sorry about that.
I mean, you got excited. How should one blame you? Yeah, we are right now in qualifying, watching the drivers go around the Nordschleife for 2 laps, or lap attempts, rather said. Adrian Lunio is, well, pretty much, I think, the only one who's won a race in RFL before, as he has a slowdown coming out of Vidol. So it might get interesting, because, of course, he has some good fellow racers to beat, including the likes of Dominic Ladler. But what would you say, Tim? Who's your favorite? Who's in here to win it today?
I hope they're all in it to win it. But I think for me it's got to be the steady workhorse that is Dominic Ladler. I think he's a standout driver that we've had in these races for a long time. So I'm going to put my money on Ladler. I'm sorry, Dominic. My picks tend to have bad luck.
I mean, it's all fair, but I'm also very interested to see what the other names in this race can do, as we see, and that is Lunio in the wall, I think. But Pascal Jordan being here today, he's done quite a few races and always was quite decent, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think Ladler's going to have it all his own way in this race. There's still a few names dotted around that we know of, and it's the Nordschleife and anything can happen. But so yeah, I think it's not going to be an open and shut case for Ladler winning. I'm sure we'll have some exciting racing on track as usual.
I mean, you will also recognize this name. Dennis Kurzer has been one who has been very rapid at certain RCL races. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him fighting up front there. But
in which case, we'll both be the winners.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I think we should call it a draw. But yeah, as I said, we are right now in qualifying, so yeah, the first lap. The thing is, of course, with the Founders League and Nordschleife in general, which is different to other races we have, if you go off track, your lap time won't be invalidated, but you will get a 5-second slowdown that will slow you down to 60 kph. So it does hurt the lap time quite significantly. It's not something you really want to get.
No, but it does make sense with the format that we have running for the RFL races, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, since you only get 2 laps, you can at least finish the lap and compete for something, instead of just invalidating the lap and being just stranded out there with no lap time.
Yeah, the one downside of the Nordschleife is that it is such a long lap, and to have an open qualifying session where going off track invalidates your lap, you have to have quite a long session for you to be able to get a couple of laps in. Well, more than a couple of laps in. So yeah, having us, like we are, limited to 2 qualifying laps, but with slowdowns, I think is a sensible compromise.
As we see, for example, Dominic Ladler having very, very sketchy moment coming through Bergwerk. However, we have one guy in chat who should have been here today, but he forgot, as it seems, as the name giver of the Tim Schroeder flash. Tim Schroeder himself is in the Twitch chat. Welcome, welcome. And yeah, already dropping the ball with the event tomorrow, because of course today is not the only bit of racing. Tomorrow we will have, in, how would you say it? In honor of, I think that sounds a bit too too format like, but yeah, of course, with the Petit Le Mans being there tomorrow, we will also have our own versions with the 200 miles at Road Atlanta with the Hypercars and GT3s. I think that will be a very interesting event.
Yeah, Road Atlanta is not an easy track to race for a long period of time on. And we know the hypercars are not easy to drive for a long time, as they shouldn't be. They're hypercars. They're a premier class for a reason. But it'll be super interesting to see how any hypercar drivers deal with the hypercar for that length of time, but also traffic at the same time on what is a pretty twisty track with some interesting curbs.
I mean, it was also interesting lines here taken by Edwin Lunio through HAVIT, but anyway, he's still driving. But yeah, as you say, it's a great challenge for both cars, or both types of cars, driving-wise, and having them both on the same track with those speed differences might be quite interesting. However, I mean, it is very unique in terms of its length. Usually you have multi-class races at racetracks that are a bit longer. I mean, what comes to mind are tracks like Le Mans, Spa, the Nordschleife, which we are visiting right now. And Road Atlanta is a 1 minute 15 lap in a GT3.
Yeah, and it's not got the kind of traditional long straight overtaking move where you can get past other class cars nice and safely. Even the straight, the racing line moves from one side of the track to another and back again, and it's quite a single line track as far as racing is concerned. There's not a lot of variation, so it will be super interesting to see how anybody brave enough to take the hypercar deals with that.
I mean, somehow it still has better racing than many modern racetracks, but that's not for me to decide, I guess. But now we are approaching the end of the timed first lap. Dominik Ladler down through Tiergarten and Hohenrhein. It's a very hard braking zone, especially in those cars. Yeah, a bit faster than in the GT3, but with worse brakes and less aero. So it's a fairly interesting balance. And I already spotted Joachim Thunder in the chat. And he made a bet before the stream with me. Well, I wouldn't say passe with me, but yeah, kind of. As Pascal Jordan is currently actually leading the timing table. But the bet is as follows. He thinks out of the 4 BMWs we have here today, a maximum of 2 cars are gonna finish. Since the BMW, since the last update and the current BOP is a bit harder to drive than when it was released. I do see where he's coming from, but I don't think that with the likes of Jordan, Kurzer, and Ladler in those cars, that we will see too many dropouts.
I don't think so. I think it's not a big field, so it's not going to be too messy traffic-wise for too long. So I don't think we'll have many dropouts. I'm going with you. Don't stop believing.
What we didn't talk about is what the winner gets out of the bet.
Fat points.
That's a good thing. In German, there's like a meme. It doesn't translate as well. I mean, it's not really a translation, but like for maybe some of the German viewers have heard it, Gummipunkte. It's like rubber points, and once you get a lot of them, you can get like a free towel or something. It's kind of stupid, not gonna lie. But I can already see that a certain Enrico Brueniger is already aware of it. Adrian Lunio is on a flyer right now. Already 2.3 seconds up on Pascal Jordan's lap time and just into Hatzenbach now. If you would know what I can afford. But Adrian Lunio is sending it real hard, I feel like. Oh, well, I mean, okay, how should you know about the other one that I lost? Anyway, since I and you are so close on the keyboard, I just noticed. And
Yeah,
it changes
it's good.
everything when you type. Learning
Yeah,
facts with Lino.
Adrian does seem to be pushing pretty hard here. He's got 3 purple sectors so far, so that's pretty good.
Oh, into the wall. Into Adenauer force. Manages to keep it straight somehow. I mean, he's lucky that there is no damage for the Nordschleife races yet. But, indeed, so far it's looking very good for him. Was also lucky to not get a slowdown there. Entering Metzgersfeld, you throw the car in there, 4th, 5th gear, depending on what line you take, and into a hard braking zone. And into Kallenhardt.
Damage. Is there going to be damage tomorrow at the RCE?
Since it's an RCE. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
I mean, I know you are a big fan of... Oh! Adrian, how did he manage that? But he puts it into the garage. But how in the world... Oh, and Dennis Kurzer, the same spot. Also through triple right. Also part.
If it was real life now, we could start asking questions about whether there's any oil on the track on that corner. But there is none, so they've all just made mistakes at the same place.
I mean, it is a very hard turn in any car, I'd say. But that is fairly odd to see them both coming out on the same spot. So you have still Sassenscheid and Booning, 2 people we haven't seen in the... or in any official competition as far as I know. But yeah, I mean, the current top 4, Jordan, Ladler, Lunio, and Kurzer. I think the biggest surprise in that is Jordan. Or what do you think?
No, I'd agree with you there. It's not a small gap. I mean, I know obviously we've talked before about the length of Nordschleife and how it kind of makes gaps seem bigger than they perhaps are. But 3.5 seconds is a decent gap on the Nordschleife.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen him before, as mentioned earlier, in different events. Oh, in Sassenscheid also through triple right. Well, who went there first? I think Ladler didn't start his second lap. I think Lunio was the first one to approach there, so... maybe he slipped on his own oil? I don't know. Anyway.
We'll have to get onto the art department and get them to texture some oil on that corner now.
I forgot what I was about to say with that, but
We're professionals.
we are professionals, trust us.
Technically, professionals.
But also technically, no. You have to get Lewis McGlade or something on the broadcast at some stage again.
It'll just make us look even worse.
Yeah, to know our standards.
I know my standard. The fact that you keep asking me to come back is the most surprising thing.
It's not like I'm any better, I guess. But all jokes aside, it's always a pleasure to be commentating on this, especially with you or Remco.
Yeah.
Depending on if I want to get screamed at or have a conversation on a normal level.
I had a few personal things getting in the way the last couple of weeks. I've not been able to join you. It's been a long time since I've done this. It's good to get back into it.
Anyway, we are still waiting for these two cars to finish their laps.
Fabian, I'm never going to say his last name. It's just coming up to the carousel, so...
It's not that hard, it's Außenscheid.
Exactly. Fabian.
Last names can be quite the challenge for commentators, so...
Luckily, he's got the dignity to have a fairly normal first name, so I can always pick that one.
Can always go for the safe approach. But that's qualifying wrapped because time has run out. So, yeah, just having a look at the lap time. The last lap of them was a 10-minute 20. So, yeah, with the lap time scheduled, was maybe a bit too tight for them.
Yeah.
But we are getting onto the grid now, getting ready for the race. I mean, that's the neat part of having a German on the broadcast, right?
Yeah.
And nobody has mentioned the commentators. I mean, kind of. I mean, we probably cursed Ladler and Lunio, but it will be fine.
You spent a while hyping up Dennis Kurza, and now he's fourth on the grid. And that's like a mini curse.
We will see, we will see. It's a long run down into turn 1. I mean, much can happen.
He might do a Nico Nunninghoff into turn 1 and somehow manage to stay clean and overtake the entire field.
It is a BMW after all.
It's true.
But it's Pascal Jordan leading that to the green flag. And Kurzer going very far to the inside, so maybe he does try to go for the Nico Nunninghoff. But we go green here at the Nordschleife for round 2 of season 2. And Adrian Lunio with a dream start, as it seems, but kind of being castled in by all the other BMWs. But it's Pascal Jordan leading them down through turn 1. Adrian Lunio keeping his position rather. So they stay as they were on the starting grid.
Yeah, it's all stayed in order so far. So all looking pretty good. Except for Pascal Jordan going for a bit of a mannequin drift coming out of the complex.
Adrian Lunio is showing the speed he has in qualifying though. Oh, and Dominic Ladler went quite a bit right, and Lunio instantly went for it like, yeah. I'm gonna go for that gap.
Open. Yep.
And Dennis Kurzer must have made a mistake, so maybe I have cursed him.
The Fabian Yvonne Dennis train seems to have dropped off the back a little bit, so I wonder if there was some incident in there that we missed.
I mean, there definitely has been an incident with Kurzer.
Pascal Jordan leaping off the front.
And also, I definitely did instantly understand what you were saying, Enrico. But Lunio, he's really pushy on the back of Dominic Ladler. But Pascal Jordan already a 2.2 second gap to Dominic Ladler.
Yeah, the smart money, if you want to say that, might be on Lunio and Ladler working together a bit now, rather than fighting for position and trying to close that gap up. But races do be races, and they seem to be preferring to having a bit of bumper-to-bumper fun.
I can definitely understand the issue Adrian Lunio finds himself in right now. Because the BMW and GT4, while both being GT4 cars, are so polar opposites in terms of how they behave, and how they behave especially over a 60-minute duration. I mean, the BMW, it is a bit of a tire eater now, of course, but it does not change too much in characteristics. It is better in the consistency of the long run. And the Audi is very rapid on the opening few laps, but drops off significantly after that and gets increasingly hard to drive. It has a lot of wear on the rear tires, and therefore you kinda get too much rotation in the turns. If you can follow me with this.
Yeah.
So you basically have to make up as much as possible in the opening stage of the race, where you still have a good car underneath you, before then dropping off and having to defend on worn tires.
Yeah, I can see your point. Yeah, he's probably itching to try and get ahead while his car feels good. But maybe he'd be better off staying back and conserving his tyres a bit and trying to do something when the gap's closed a little bit.
Perhaps he's also seeing the gap to Jordan increasing every sector.
Yeah, true. He's growing pretty rapidly.
But I mean, these two there, you can't accuse them of holding back, that's for certain.
No, that's for sure. But we know that Ladler doesn't get phased by pressure, so he seems to be more than capable of soaking it up. What Lunio's dishing out right now.
But if what I would read from the way Dominic Ladler is driving, I don't feel like he's really feeling pressured, and I don't feel like he's thinking that Adrian is much faster.
No.
Because what we've usually seen with Dominic Ladler is that he's not the type to overly defend, and Adrian Lunio, is he spun on? Yeah. I mean,
just pushed it a little bit too hard coming out of that corner.
Yeah, I'd say it was just a bit too aggressive. It's not like Dominic Ladler pushed him onto the curb. He just tried to go around the outside in a turn where you cannot really go around the outside. I'm sure he will be able to recover from it, but it definitely has thrown him back. But, I mean, what I've now talked about became irrelevant in the blink of an eye, but usually Dominic Ladler is the type of driver that doesn't really fight a position if he sees no point in it.
No, I see what you mean, yeah.
So if he felt like Adrian Lunio was much faster, and if he felt like he wouldn't have lost much time behind him, I think he would have let him through. And he didn't really go overly defensive into any corners. He left the door open in a way, even.
Yeah, he did a few kind of semi-defensive lines into corners. I think maybe just to discourage a hasty move, shall we say. But yeah, he seemed to be mainly just taking it fairly normally. But let's see if now that he doesn't have to worry about having Adrian Luneau directly behind him, if he can maybe pick up his pace a little bit. He's got a fair gap to close up to Pascal Jordan, but there's a long time left in the race, so he doesn't have to do it all immediately.
But I mean, talking about Pascal Jordan, 7 seconds to Dominic Ladler, who's not under pressure right now and still building that gap. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely good pace from Jordan. You can't deny that. He seems to have seen his chance to get a gap and gone straight from the flag. Let's see if he can keep it up. Nice bit of sideways action there.
Nice jump as well. It's always a bit of an infuriating feeling, depending on your setup, the wheel, the car. But like when you jump and you get that sudden snap in the wheel at times.
Yeah, it can be a pretty tricky thing. You think it's going to be fairly simple. It's a straight line jump, but it can do interesting things when you land if you don't take it properly.
Adrian Luneau already down to 1.8 seconds behind Dominic Ladler again. Not quite close enough to do anything on the dirting area, I'd say. Especially since that BMW is mighty on the straight.
For sure it is. Yeah, if he could have got a bit closer, then he might have been able to get a decent toe coming down the Dottinger, but from this distance, he's not going to get a lot. And the BMW is just going to have the legs to pull away a little bit more of a gap. But then, of course, we've got the GP circuit, which is all nice and twisty, so I'm sure Adrian's going to be catching up kind of hand over fist through there.
I mean, in terms of pit stops, I think these two won't really, or the top 4 overall won't be really separated by much. We have seen them we've rarely seen them do mistakes. Of course, sometimes lost a second here or there, but nothing too major. They know how to play their cards.
Yeah, they're all fairly experienced at the pit stops now. I think we can stop worrying about people making massively different pit stop times like they were at the beginning, unless somebody makes a big oops.
Well, maybe at some point we will see a driver pulling off a very different strategy.
We have occasionally had some pretty funky strategies in here. The Nordschleife. Maybe not so much in a 60-minute race, but
definitely in the 2.4 hour race. I mean, that was... Is it fireworks at your place?
Yeah, someone's setting fireworks off and I don't know why. They just do sometimes.
I mean, it's the 11th of October. It's time to celebrate, isn't it?
Is it?
I don't know. However, Adrian Luneau right back on the bumper of Dominic Ladler. Second try to get past, I'd say. Not second try, but second time he's in a position to find a way through. At some point.
The celebration's still going on here because it's round 2 of the RFL. Oh, I think they're finally finished.
Oh, and here comes Adrian again to the inside. Really kind of desperate to find his way through.
He is, yeah. I think now he's for sure seen his difference in pace right now from Dominic Ladler. He's going to be pretty aggressively trying to, wanting to get past him and make as much of those tyres as he can while he's still got them.
I mean, the problem against the Dominic Ladler is he can't just simply pass.
No.
In terms of defense, he is a solid wall. And you have to try something outstanding, but not stupid. In a way.
And
I mean,
now they're kind of on the Nordschleife proper as well. Then overtaking becomes kind of magnitudes more difficult if the person in front doesn't want you to pass.
And knows how to defend from you. I mean, as said previously, and as you can see, Dominik Lala isn't even really defending. He's just fast at the crucial points, making it super hard from Lunio. He has to get him off guard somewhere, but yeah, find a spot where to really throw off Dominik Lala.
Yeah, and there's not...
Oh, and Pascal Jordan in the gravel trap at Arenberg. What has happened there? So Pascal Jordan dropped to third. I mean, with the pace he has, I'm not really losing any mind about him not being able to compete.
Saying that, Adrian Luneur is currently on 3 purple sectors, so he's definitely got the pace if he can get past Dominik Ladler. That's a big if, though.
Oh, and Yvonne Booning and Fabian Straßenscheid getting very close together, as it seems. But yeah, as Jochen Thunder also points out in chat, the BMW is super wide as well. You can make it through it right now. Adrian Lunio down the inside of Kallenhardt. You don't see moves being made there very often. And now side by side through Spiegelkurve. If he can pull it off and keep it together through the triple right-hander. Getting a bit loose on the rear axle, but I think he's through.
Yeah, that was a brave move for sure. But I think his kind of desperation to get past and use the pace that he's got right now is maybe even ramped up a bit more now they've seen Pascal Jordan in the gravel.
I mean, it's exactly what we've talked about before, isn't it? I mean, he kind of caught Dominik Lala off guard, but I'm surprised by the grip he had down the inside of Kallenhardt.
Yeah, it was some good driving there, and it was a well-deserved move. They both kept it super fair. So you can't complain with that one.
I mean, especially into Spiegelkurve, it's like and Dominik Ladler onto the curb. You don't want to do that necessarily. I think that will be an easy pass for Pascal Jordan.
And you can already see the gap that Munoz pulled out from Dominik Ladler. Nearly 4 seconds.
I mean, as I said, it will be quite interesting to see how these cars behave over time. Since the BMW should technically be better in the longer run. Dominik Ladler, of course, now also struggling on tires and letting Pascal Jordan through. And you can actually see the indicator was on Dominik Ladler's. We've seen that last week on the RCL in Hockenheim that Dominik Ladler used his indicators. Even though I'm not sure if it was on purpose on that race. But this time it was definitely on purpose. But now it's Pascal Jordan hunting down Adrian Lunio, and currently it seems like he is the faster driver.
Yeah, he seems to be... I know it's the second lap, so it's bound to be faster than the first lap in the first few sectors at least, but he seems to be throwing down a lot of purples right now. He's been given some clean air in front of him, and he's determined to use it as best he can.
But if Adrian Lunio continues pushing the R8 like this, it will be very hard later in the race. We are 1/4 of the way through. Not even quite. I mean, there's still one more lap to go, but...
He is pushing that R8 as well. You can see it sliding around on the exit corners.
And yeah, you can see it step out in the middle of the turn, which is the way worst thing to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed by by the skill these drivers prove through this sequence of the track. It's one of my favorite parts of the track. The run down from Hohe 8 to roundabout here, Belofest. Oh, and Lunio way out of shape.
That was an impressive hold, though.
Pretty much. Again, lucky that damage is turned off, but it didn't help him timing-wise, because Pascal Jordan, 1.2 seconds, and closing could be in for a slipstream move.
Yeah, he's done it at the worst possible time as far as having the BMW behind you coming up to Dottinger is concerned.
Well,
still a bit big for any slipstream.
Yeah, I mean,
but,
Pascal Jordan kinda ruined it for himself on the run out of the small carousel.
But even so, you can see the time dropping and dropping and dropping. That BMW M4 is pretty insane on the straights.
Adrian Lunio definitely running for his win. As said, he is the only one in this field to have won an RFL race. Dominic Lala, on the other hand, a two-time RCL champion. So, also, well, proves his point. But the season 1 of RFL has seen Maximilian Dehn winning 3 races and Adrian Lunio in the 3rd round being the sole different winner.
Yeah. Maximilian Dehn giving someone else a chance to win. Occasionally.
Last race, by the way, since we couldn't unfortunately broadcast it to the end, was won by Remco Major.
I've never heard of him.
Always fun with him in races, though. Can't deny that.
He does always keep things entertaining. Yeah, Pascal Jordan closed up fairly impressively down the Dottinger Hohe, and he's back within a second now as they go through the GP part of the track. The BMW M4 looking a lot more planted through the corners than the R8, that's for sure.
I mean, that is pretty much exactly the case. But on the other hand, it seems like Pascal Jordan is suffering from understeer in the dirty air of Adrian Lunio.
He probably didn't do his tyres many favours with his trip into the gravel, but they should be fairly clean by now, and they might be a bit more worn than they perhaps would have been normally at this point in the race.
I mean, the same issue goes for Adrian Lunio and Dominic Lala of their excursions, so it kind of evens out, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
What Dominic Lala, of course, is hoping for now, that these two will get into a fight and that he can close in on them.
For sure. I'm surprised to see Dennis Kurtzer so far back from these leading 3. He had a bit of an incident earlier on, and he seemed to be closing the gap back up again, but he must have had another incident.
And it just seemed like he could never really recover, because his times at the moment are still a bit far off in terms. And Pascal Jordan going side by side through the Quiddelbacher Höhe into Flugplatz now. Is he going to take the position into one of the most daring positions of the track? And yes, he does.
That was a ballsy move.
I mean, it's not the first one we've seen here today.
No, but you've got to give respect to that one. I've got to admit, most of the time, if somebody tries to overtake me... Oh!
Oh! Can he keep it pointed to the correct direction, though? No. And he's again in the graviton at the exact same place as well.
That corner seems to be his Achilles heel right now.
And again, it's 6 seconds to Adrian Lunio, and here comes Dominic Lala, but he's backing out of it. So he's trying to hang on to Jordan to close in on the Audi in front.
Use his BMW teammate to slingshot him back up to the action.
Meanwhile, Joachim Thunder has pointed out a pretty unrealistic thing about RENNSPORT, which, yeah, of course, it's a fictional game, as Tim Schreider says. Of course, we try to convey realism to our drivers, but a BMW using an indicator is kind of a rare thing to see. It does exist, though. In rare circumstances, even a BMW can use a blinker.
Yep, the cars are equipped with them. It's
they just don't work usually.
It's perhaps the unrealistic thing about RENNSPORT is that you don't have quite as many breakages. You can probably park this BMW for 10 minutes in the pits without a pool of oil appearing on the floor as well.
I mean, how do I say? The thing with BMWs, for those who don't know, is that usually in a car you turn on the indicator, you turn, and it automatically stops. Like the indicator turns back to neutral position, basically. BMW, however, doesn't do that. But it does disable the indicator when you don't need it to disable. For some reason. I don't get how they do that.
It's just... it's superior German engineering.
I could not go into how it's actually achieved because, I mean, for those who don't know, I am actually a mechanic myself, but... Reflect, oh, and Pascal John doing the AMG drift through the move roll. Holy moly, that was a move.
Although, to be fair, we have seen a BMW indicate in this race. There is an Audi also in this race. It hasn't indicated.
That is a fair point. I mean, usually they're so close to your bumper that you don't see the indicators anymore, so you won't know. But indeed, the BMWs use their flash more often. Tim Schreider would probably know the best. And Adrian again, the car gets very light on the rear axle.
It's a very entertaining sector to watch Adrian Luneau go through because that car looks so sketchy.
I'm not sure if it's the most entertaining for him.
No.
But for us it definitely is. Even though with the R8 driving it on the edge like this can be so much fun.
I really like driving the R8, and I've always been a fairly big fan of the M4 GT4, but I do tend to drive the R8 more in the GT4s, just because it is kind of entertaining to drive. You feel like you're holding on for dear life most of the time.
I mean, you know me. I do prefer my mid-engine cars and especially Audis over front-engine cars in the GT segment. But for the BMW, for example, I feel like it's better to tell where the actual limit is. With the Audi, just catches you by surprise. So, yeah, I'm usually, of course, driving with the 4 rings on the grill, but sometimes I just feel like, yeah, BMW, let's go.
Plus, I do like to be quite contrarian. There's a lot of BMW M4s. I think partly because people own them. So when I do GT4 races, I tend to pick the Audi just for a bit of variety for everybody.
I mean, there's actually much more to that than some might think. I mean, we've seen one of the core Audi drivers in the forms of Joachim Thunder switching to the BMW simply because he owns it now.
Yeah.
I do understand the reasoning behind it, though.
It's still a betrayal.
Very much indeed. As we complete the third lap, we will have 7 in total as far as I can see it.
That was an impressive lap by Adrian Lenoir there, doing an 8:52. We had 8
BMWs
purple
are coming
sectors.
in. Suppose they're both coming in at the same time as well. I mean, the GT4s can usually make 4 laps. They also start
Yeah.
with 40 liters to my knowledge.
Yeah, they both had a fairly decent amount of fuel left in them, to be honest.
Look how much Dominic Lalla gained in the pits, though. He's right back on the bumper of Pascal Jordan.
Yeah, Pascal Jordan had a few added seconds aligning to his pit box. They both took fuel, no tyres. So they're obviously planning to stick it out.
Dennis Kurzer with a nice 360 out of phone, right? Doesn't really help slap time, but...
Adrian Lenoir doing pretty well on fuel, to be honest. I think the R8 seems to do okay on fuel consumption.
I mean, it's surprising for me personally, since, I mean, the Audi has a naturally aspirated V10.
Yeah.
10 cylinders. 10 cylinders that need to be fed with fuel. Lots of fuel. The BMW is a turbocharged 6-cylinder, so you of course need to inject more fuel, but you have, well, 4 less working cycles. It's interesting that the fuel consumption is actually in the favor of the Audi here.
Well, Pascal Jordan's fuel consumption was quite a bit more than Dominic Ladler's fuel consumption. There was more than a couple of litres between them, so I know Pascal Jordan was obviously going faster, but his driving style seems to perhaps use fuel up more than Dominic Ladler's does. Ladler and Lenoir were more equal on fuel usage than Pascal Jordan.
I mean, the thing with Ladler is he's incredibly smooth while driving. When we've seen Jordan and Lenoir fighting it out, these two cars were pretty much all over the track. When we've seen Ladler and Lenoir fight, Ladler was just driving on rails compared to the Audi.
Yeah.
That's not